In the Gladiator films, the Praetorian Guards are portrayed as this elite fighting force capable of marching out of the city of Rome like a real Roman army. In reality, however, they were spoilt, they were overfed, and they were overpaid soldiers who barely did their job. They were not a serious fighting force. In theory, they were supposed to guard the life of the emperor, and occasionally they actually did this, but only because they were bribed in gold and silver coins, like these ones, to do their actual job. Two of these Praetorian guards murdered the Emperor Caligula over personal disagreements. Because they had just murdered the emperor, they quickly searched for another member of the imperial family to make emperor, and they found Claudius cowering behind a curtain. They did this because they actually did need someone else to guard. A few years later, the commander Galba took over as emperor. He refused to give the Praetorians their customary bribe, or donative as they called it, and guess what? He was murdered by the Praetorians who had sworn to protect him. The commander of the Praetorian Guard was a very powerful man, and was often the main power broker in the city of Rome. If you wanted to be emperor, you needed his approval. After the Emperor Commodus was murdered, a new emperor emerged who wisely paid 3,000 of these silver denarii coins as a premium to every single Praetorian soldier for the privilege of keeping him alive. But guess what? A handful of these Praetorians murdered him nonetheless because they wanted even more money to drink, to gamble, and to whore away. What then followed was a moment of shame for the legitimacy of the position of emperor. The Praetorian Guard literally held an auction for the position of emperor. Didius Julianus was the lucky man who bid the most. This time the army had to get involved, tricking the Praetorian Guard outside of the city walls, outside of their camp, and slaughtered them all. But the new emperor, Septimius Severus, killed every single member of the Praetorian Guard, but just replaced them with his own loyal guys for the cycle to repeat itself. So the Praetorian Guard weren't the equivalent of the Marines or the SAS. They were a disloyal bunch of troublemakers in the middle of Rome. They did have to be slightly taller than the regular recruits. Minimum entry is at 5'10", which would have been quite tall at the time. Aside from their physical height, their actual power came from the fact that they were the only people allowed to brandish weapons and armor within the sacred boundary, the Pomerium, of Rome. Anyone who disagreed with them would have been put to the sword. If you were an emperor, it was wise to bribe them, or wiser still, would be to disband a bunch of crybabies altogether. This is what Constantine the Great did, firmly placing the field army at the top of the empire's hierarchy.